So I got a question about how I made this traveler's notebook and the inserts that I put inside. And I thought it might be easier just to do a quick video run through to show you how easy it is to do this stuff. And you don't need a whole lot of fancy tools. You just need the right tools. So let's talk about the tools that I use first to make my notebooks. So what you see here are just some basic items that I either got at my house or from Joann's. Um, so we've got an awl here that I got, I think, in the sewing section. This is what I use to punch holes. And then I've got this little piece of corrugated cardboard that I picked up. I think it came in a box or something like that. And I use that to put underneath whatever I'm punching holes into so that it protects the surface that I'm working on. I've got a pack of Dritz repair needles. These are like for upholstery repair, and like the curved ones can be used for, I think for book, if I was going to do like Coptic stitch bookbinding or something like that. But I use number 4 here when I am sewing together an insert, and number 3 proved very handy to help me thread the elastics in this new notebook. So I use these repair needles and I just keep them in the pack, and as you can see, it's been used. This is the cord that I've been using, the thick elastic cord from the Jewelry Fundamentals line. Read that, the super cheap cord at Joann's. I got this neutral card. I think they have cards with multiple colors on it. I've used up all the black now with this particular notebook, but you can see there's like a steel gray and then a little lighter gray and a tan, and I don't use the white or the cream very much, but the others I've used on other notebooks I've made, and it's great. There's only 4 yards of each color, and when I think about it, I've made 2 traveler's notebooks with black elastic and 4 elastics in each one of those notebooks, using this using that 4 yards. So that should give you an idea about how much of that stuff you need. If you're just making one notebook, you're not going to need a ton. This is what I use to sew my notebooks together. This is waxed linen thread that I got, I think, at Joann's in the jewelry making section. I would actually normally use this to tie off beads if I'm doing a knotted bead project, but this stuff is really great for sewing the books together as well. You don't need a whole lot of it, and it's good stuff. So those are the tools that I use, in addition, of course, to the actual leather and the paper, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So I've taken the book apart, or rather I've taken all of the items out of the book so that you can actually see as best as possible with this black thread on a black notebook what I've done here. This charm, I usually am not really big into charms, but I had this. I meant to use it for a piece of jewelry and just never got around to it, and I thought, okay, I'll try that out on this notebook. So this is something I got in the jewelry section at Joann's. Okay. And so you can see this is a traveler's notebook with the elastic strung through the spine of the notebook instead of the back, because I don't like having the bump in the back of my notebook. You'll also see here, you can see the little, well, maybe you can't see, none of light, but you can see the those little indentations are where the elastics are. So when I open it up, of course, it curls up, right, like these things do. And let's see, let's slip a little insert under here, and that will help us to see what's going on. So I've got 4 elastics. You can see the 2 in the middle are kind of, they're close to each other because they're actually strung through the same hole. So what I did when I was making this notebook is I measured down. This is an 8.5 by 11 piece of leather, so it is exactly the size of a piece of paper, of letter size paper. And I went down 1/2 inch on the top, and then I came up 1/2 inch on the bottom, and found my center here. I punched 1 hole here with my awl, another, a couple of, I don't even know how long that is. The whole center is about 1 inch, so It's probably about a 1/2 inch over here and a 1/2 inch over there. I kind of eyeballed it for the top, marked it with a chalk pencil where I wanted to put my holes, and then I used a ruler, a straight edge, to find where I wanted to put the holes at the bottom. You can see there's still a little residue from the chalk. I haven't done all the cleanup yet on this. So that's how I punched the holes. So 3 holes at the top, 3 holes at the bottom. And then I thread them by going, I thread them through so that I end up with the long strands inside and then these little short bad boys outside. And that's what I did. And then I punched a hole. So that's all just one big thread. And then there's a hole punched, and you can't see it because it's so dark, but there is a hole punched in the middle where I have the loop that I put out there to close the notebook. And that is the notebook as it is made. Super simple. I literally took a piece of leather that was already cut and that I didn't need to trim, did a few measurements, measured twice, punch once, and did my punches and threaded my elastic. You'll notice that I didn't use any grommets. I didn't use a leather punch to make a big old hole. I just used the awl, and it works really well. You have to maybe a little elbow grease to get it in there, but I can get just the right hole that I want. And when I started to thread the elastics, I realized that the hole might have been a little bit smaller than I needed it to be. So I used the awl, and then found that using my needle, this number 3 one here, it's got a bigger eye, so it made it a lot easier to thread the elastic. And it's got, I don't know if you can see it in the package, but it's got kind of a flat edge toward the point, and that really helped to just pull that elastic thread right on through, so there was no problem at all with that. Made it super easy to get this threaded. And of course, if you work with a traveler's notebook, when it's empty, you know that they can curl up like this. That's kind of supposed to happen because it means your elastics are tight enough. This leather I got at Michael's, and it was about, I think it was $12 for the piece. They also have it in a nice brown, but I like black. It's a nice piece of leather for a journal cover. It's not super floppy. It's got a nice substantive feel to it. You can see how thick it is here. And so it's really fantastic for this kind of use. It feels really nice. It's got that matte kind of finish. The inside of it's really nice. I noticed as I was working with it, there was no dye coming off of my hands or anything like that. So I'm really pleased with this. And with the coupon, with a 40% off coupon, you're going to be in high cotton when you're buying this piece of leather. Now, the trick, of course, is that this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of leather. Standard Midori inserts are not going to fit in this, because once I put the elastics in and make sure that I have enough space here at the top so that the integrity of the leather isn't damaged, so that I can actually get notebooks in and out without worrying about ripping through it. What I end up with is 8 inches worth of length that's available to me for my notebooks. So I will show you the notebooks that I make, because I just make them myself, because nobody makes them as far as I can tell for what I need, and they're so simple to make that it really it's kind of fun to do, actually, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time at all. So I want to show you a couple of notebooks that I made yesterday, and this is one that actually is not quite finished yet, so I'll use this one to talk a little more specifically about them. These are in the other traveler's notebook that I have, which is also the same size, which is part of what made the Michael's sheet of leather more appealing to me, because I knew I could just interchange. This is a notebook that I made from a journal that I bought at a Barnes & Noble that was damaged, and it had it already had holes punched in it, And so the X's here with the pearl cotton are covering the holes from the signatures that were sewn into that original journal. And here's where I strung my elastic on the top, and it's set up the same way as the other one. But what you see here are some notebooks. This one has music paper in it. I'm learning how to play a baritone ukulele, and so this is here to help me this summer to get back on track with my music theory and learning some more chords. I've got some, this is the opening of a dashboard that I made out of a sheet protector, you know, the kind that you use in binders. They're not the prettiest things in the world, but they do the job. This is a journal that I made out of the paper that came from the original journal that this is made from. And basically it was already cut for me. All I had to do was trim here because the notebook, the original notebook, was a little wider than what it ended up being after I converted it. And so I just did a trim on the side, bound the signature, punched some holes in it, and made a notebook. So let's take a look at this notebook. This is one I made last night. So a notebook is cardstock and paper. When I have the availability to do it, I use 32-pound printer paper, laser printer paper, to print my sheets. I've used 20-pound, I've used 24-pound. I like the 32 the best. This is 15 whole sheets of paper that have been bound into this notebook, so I've got 60 pages right here. It's nice. It's a nice little notebook. You'll notice the edges here, everything is smooth, but the white sticks out a little bit, the paper sticks out a little bit, because when you put a whole bunch of paper together and you stack it, the stuff in the middle sticks out a little bit from the edge. I usually try to cut the cover a little bit bigger, like a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch larger than the size of the paper inside, but it never quite works out right. And for my purposes, I don't care. If I was like opening an Etsy shop or something like that and selling these, I'd probably care more. If that's something that really bugs you, the way that you deal with it is you trim the inside pages a hair shorter, and basically you just get them larger as you go out toward the edges. So I would have needed to trim these a bit more, like these pages in the center, trim a little bit more off the sides. You can also, although this notebook is thick enough that I really wouldn't want to do this, you can use a straight metal ruler to hold against the side here. Grab a good sharp X-Acto knife. Make sure you put a cutting mat underneath so that you don't ruin your surface, and then you just trim away at it until it's all gone. I just don't care, but I do care enough to round the corners, and because I just like that look. And so I have a little corner punch that I got. This is the Becky Higgins one from the Project Life series, but you can get corner punches all over the place. I think I bought this one because it was on sale. I love a good sale. And I use my corner punch to round off my edges. You'll see here, this is that linen thread that I was talking about before, the waxed linen thread. I used black for this notebook. I have a cream color too that I use. The paper inside, and this is just like plain old cardstock. It's actually, in some respects, it feels almost flimsier than the paper that's inside, but it's a cover, and it's a notebook I'm going to use, and then I'm going to file it away, and it doesn't have to be super durable. But it's decent cardstock. It's just Michael's, like their value stuff. And then I have this dot grid sheet that's just an 8.5 by 11 dot grid paper. You can find this stuff on the internet for free to download a PDF, and I just did double-sided printing, and I printed a whole bunch of sheets, and then I cut them down to the size that I needed them to be, which for this notebook is 8 inches high and then 9 inches wide. I use a bone folder to fold these in half, but you can do it by hand. It just takes a little time and precision. Then when I'm ready to put the notebook together, I punch holes in it and I sew it. So to show that, I've got this little notebook here. I'm not going to actually punch the holes in it because I don't have a fancy setup, and so I'm holding my phone. But this is another notebook that is in process. I realized that I didn't have a cover sheet for the notebook itself, so I've got to print one of those out today when I go to my office. But this one is ready to put it together. So there's the cardstock. And these are the pages inside. This is a project management insert that I got from someone on Etsy, and I'll try to put a link in the notes so that you can see where I got it from. But this is the insert. It's like a one-page thing, and what I did is I just double-sided. I printed it double-sided. So that I could make a booklet out of it. So like the insert just comes as one page, and then I printed them and I made a booklet because I wanted a project management notebook. So once I'm ready to put this together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my awl and I'm going to punch a hole in the center. I'm going to punch a hole up here. I'm going to punch another hole up down here, and then I'm going to take my thread and my needle. And I'm going to thread the center hole, come out, thread the top hole, pull tight, come back down, thread this hole, then go back out, come back up through the center hole, pull it all tight, tie it off, and I'm done. And then I'll round my corners. That's how I make a notebook. Really, really simple. So that's the notebooks and that I've made. There's also, I'll show you a couple things I've got over here. So I've got my this very homemade little craft folder that I put together where I keep bills and random bits and bobs. I've got a little ruler in here and some extra clips, and I don't like to put a whole lot of pictures in my bullet journal, but I do print out little pictures on my printer, and I'll put them around with my son and his friends. And I've got some little pockets on the edge of this one that I keep. This one's got the washi tape that I use from time to time. It's handy to have around. I actually used this stuff to repair a ring the other day that broke, which was kind of fun. And then another pocket has more little pictures in it that I can grab when I want. This other insert. These are held together if you're a bullet journaler in a travel, or if you use traveler's notebooks. You know, you can use a elastic band to put two things together. This is just a piece of cardstock that I reinforced the spine on with some duct tape. And then inside I've made myself a little post-it note caddy here, so I have post-its with me. And then on the back I've got, like, I taped one of these little post-it note guys in, and there's some cards and some stickers and things there. And I keep, this is one of the inserts I always keep in my notebook. And then just so that you can see one, this is, oh, this one's not as good, this one's better, just because it's got more stuff in it. This is one of my my homemade dashboard, so it's just a plastic, and this one's pretty thin, one of those page inserts that you use in a binder, and basically I cut it to the right size, and then I took some cardstock and just made these little dashboard inserts with pictures, things that I want to kind of keep around and remember. So there you go. That's all the guts of it all. And that's how I made my journal and the inserts.